There are two major topics that I want to discuss in this video. Much, but not all of the information that will be described here comes from the work that I've done over the last 30 years with Carl Dunst and our colleagues. We spent many years trying to understand from the research perspective what are the most effective practices to help make parents feel confident and competent in their abilities to support their children's learning. In the process, we developed and refined two concepts that are helpful when working with parents and when reflecting on your own personal practices. One of the early areas of work was to identify the types of program models that were used when thinking about working with families. In the Family-Oriented Early Intervention Policies and Practices, Family-Centered or Not article, we described the four models that we identified. Next, I will describe them briefly. The first is the professionally centered model. Here, professionals are seen as experts who determine the needs of a family from their own perspective as opposed to the family's perspective. Families are seen as mostly deficit and require help from professionals to function in a healthier manner. Families are seen as not capable of solving their own problems. The second model is the family allied model, and here families are seen as the agents of professionals. The families are enlisted to implement interventions that professionals deem necessary for the benefit of the child or family. Families are only seen as minimally competent and are not seen as being effective in making changes in their own lives. They can only do so with the help of professionals. In the family-focused model, families and professionals collaboratively define what the family and the child needs to function in a healthier manner. Families are seen in a more positive light, but are generally still viewed as needing professionals for advice and guidance. Families are encouraged to use primarily the formal professional network of services. In the family-centered model, which is the fourth model, practices are consumer-driven. That means that families' needs and desires determine all aspects of service delivery and resource provision. Professionals intervene in ways that promote family decision-making, building the family's confidence and competence. And intervention practices are almost entirely strengths-based, competency-based, and the provision of resources supports are mainly aimed to strengthen the family's capacity to build informal and formal networks to meet their needs. From our work on family-oriented models and trying to figure them out, we began to dig deeply into which family-centered practices were most likely to enhance the family's capacities to support their children's development. Through our research, we found two components that are very important in building the capacity of families. The first component involves practices that help establish and support a relationship with the family, and we call these relational practices. The second component consists of practices that promote the existing abilities of the parents by helping them be actively involved in the situation, and we refer to these as participatory practices. These two sets of practices are described in the article entitled Checklist for Assessing Adherence to Family-Centered Practices, which you were to read this week. The checklist in this article you will be using as part of your family study project. You will be asked to rate yourself using the checklist and rating your interactions with families and describe your reflections upon these practices in your final paper. Let's break this down a little bit more. Relational practices are practices that strengthen the connection between teachers and families and include practices such as active listening, compassion, empathy, and they are built on the interpersonal relationships such as mutual trust and collaboration. Another group of practices in the relational component include the professional's beliefs about the existing family strengths and professionals' respect for the personal cultural beliefs and values. So specifically, some of the relational practices include the following. Really listening to the family's concerns and requests. This means active listening. Active listening is learning to be quiet and turning your brain to listen to what the family is really saying, instead of thinking about what you are going to say next. It's not an easy thing to do. Another practice is to see the family and child in a positive, healthy way. Looking for strengths, trying to find the things that are working well, even when a lot of things are not working well. The next is understanding the child's and family's situation. For example, homelessness. Very often, you will not know that a family is homeless. They are very embarrassed by this, but their situations may change. Or not thinking about the fact that parents may be working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, so they can't come to the parent-teacher conference that you want them at. Recognizing and pointing out the family and child's strengths, and particularly pointing out the good things parents do for their children. For example, when you comment to a parent, when you tell Josh what you like about his pictures at night, he comes to school and tells us what you said. It means so much to him that you commented on his picture, and he wants us all to know that you liked it. This comment is one way to encourage parents to keep doing the great things they're doing. This is building on family strengths. Showing that you really care about the child and the family. If you don't really care, they will know it. Another practice is being sensitive and responsive to the family and child's cultural diversity. Cultural means a whole lot more than just ethnicity. For example, here in North Carolina, Tennessee mountains, we have an Appalachian culture, and that is a very unique culture with its own characteristics. If you want a relationship with a family, these are the practices that will make it happen. Now let's talk a little bit about participatory practices. These are practices that strengthen existing abilities of parents and provide parents with opportunities to learn new knowledge and skills. They need both. They need to practice what they already know, but they also need to develop new knowledge and skills. These practices include staff being responsive to the family situation and to the fact that it may change, and it may change frequently. So some specific practices that fall under the participatory practices include responding to parents' requests for advice and assistance. So when a family asks you for help or information, be sure you provide it to them as quickly as you can. This makes them feel that you really care about them. Another is to help parents be active parts of their children's learning in the classroom and at home. For example, with the family developing ways that they can, even if they can't read, help their child do their homework. How can you help make that possible? Provide parents with information so that they can make choices instead of you making the choices, even if the choice is just which types of books they're going to read to their child. It's still families making the choice. Another practice is being flexible when family situation changes. So many people are living on the edge in this economy. One day they have a home and a job, and the next day they don't. So recognizing that families may be changing, situations may be changing, and you never know about it. Support family choice and decision-making at different levels in the school. For example, ask parents to serve on an advisory committee and let them decide what type of communication they want from you. Notes home, texts, phone calls, let them make that decision. Having said all these things, it's clear that this is not always easy. Using family-centered practices can be very difficult. If it were easy, we would already be doing it, but it's not. And another article that you are going to read for class this week is entitled Family-Centered Practices, Collaboration, Competency, and Evaluation. And in this article, Marilyn describes how important it is to be family-centered, but also talks about how hard it can be to actually do this.